Hey, Ali, how are you?
Good. How are you, Richard?
Not too bad. Thanks so much for doing this, letting the group get to know you better.
Thank you for
And
having me.
and my pleasure. I'm going to just get off the ground. What we always ask each
Right.
other is what you do and why do you do what you do?
Well, I often say I'm an engineer who fell in love with the process. Uh, this all started in 2015 when my boss. So, back in 2015, let me just say from 2012 to 2016, I was in Nigeria. I was working as an automation engineer, industrial automation, and I was really working on the oil rig, right there on site. And we used to travel from the oil rig uh, to the land. It was a lot of different experience for me. I was 21 years old, and one night while we were back on the land, me and my boss we were having a discussion, and he explained something to me. He said, "Ali," and we are both process engineers, by the way, right? We're both like automation engineers. But he explained to me, he said, "You know, we deal with process every single day. It's what we do. As an automation engineer, we would control the processes in an oil and gas industry, right? It's that the process is everywhere." And I'm like, okay, tell me more. They're like, okay, let's suppose you have to go and buy milk from the store, right? You will grab your keys, grab your wallet, you'll go downstairs, if you're living in an apartment, you'll go to your car, you will drive to the grocery store, you'll go to the aisle where the milk is, you get the milk, you'll drive back, or you'll go to the a cashier, you'll pay, go back to your car, and you will drive back to your home, and you'll come upstairs. So he said, even like a simple thing, just getting milk, there is a process involved. And no matter how hard you try, you cannot skip the process. It's everywhere. And then that kept me thinking, it's such a simple example, but it stuck with me. Like every goal, no matter how big or small, it's dependent on us following a process. So uh, after my 4 years in Nigeria, uh, my other boss, the CEO of the company, he told me that, well, Ali, I think you should study innovation. And I said, why do you say that? He said, there's more to the world in industrial automation. And while you make good money here, you should learn what's going on in the world, right? So I said, okay. I said, what do you suggest? He said, like, go for a master's or something. So I Googled masters in innovation around the globe, and I found like one in France, one in the US, and one in Canada, and that was McMaster. So I applied everywhere, I got in everywhere, but this one was the oldest program in the world at the time. Now even I guess so. Yeah. So I applied there. I got my admission. I so this is more like a startup oriented program, and that's when I started seeing businesses and startups as processes as well. And after I had like a string of two or three failed startups, and then I thought, well, what my boss told me, the process is everywhere, right? And I applied the process, like the gist of the process, on my last startup, and it was a success. We had a successful exit, and after that, it's been like 4 years now. After that, I started uh, helping other companies, mostly like scale ups, startups with scale ups towards Series A and Series B, with the process because I understand that they have a good idea, great idea, they have great people, they know how to sell their products, but for some reason they can't grow, right? For some reason they are stuck. For some reason they are inefficient. Excuse me. And that's where the process comes in. That's where I guide them by building systems and frameworks so they have a structure that they can scale upon. So that's what I do now. And that's why I do it. Thanks to my mentor and my boss who reach process.
I like that. I used to teach web development at Humber, and I was I don't have the engineering background that you do. Mine's more technology, business technology management. But I used to explain to the students when we're talking, like, this is like one-on-one web
Right.
development, right?
Mhm.
Think about all the steps, because what we have to do is explain to the computer all the steps, put them
Right.
in the right order. And you just had me thinking about that a little bit when he was talking about process. But yeah, there is a process for everything, and
Mhm.
there's an opportunity to improve those processes, and you can take those, like, I think there's a book called Nudge, where just small little percentage changes can make improvements. You said a couple of things. You said startup. You said scale up. Would you mind explaining what the difference between a startup and a scale up is?
So they're all terminologies in the sense that they're all fuzzy. They don't have like a definition. But scale up is usually, in my book, any company that is past 1 million in ARR. So, that's where they're thinking about scaling up now. They're thinking about hyper growth while staying in business, while they don't need to have profitability, but they do have a growth plan or growth map out there. So startups are usually trying to pivot, trying to find out if the business model works or not. Scale-ups, they know what works, and now they want to grow. And that usually happens after, uh, I would say, when they have been in business for around 2 years, when they know what's going on, when they know the market, and now they just want to grow.
What do you think the difference is, just from your experience, in the mindset of a entrepreneur or a leader in a startup versus a scale up, or is it the same person basically?
It's not it's usually that is the issue. The founders, their mindset is still a founder mindset. That's when either they need to change their mindset or about growth, or to have someone in who can take their place and lead the company. Usually they're too attached to their business, to their own idea, to their own baby, in this case, as a startup founder, that they still want to control things. And growth doesn't happen, in my opinion, when there's too much control there. So 99% of startups fail for plenty of reasons, but one big reason is that founders are just so stubborn. And I've been on that in their shoes too, so I understand why they are, but it's not good for the company's health. Just like, it's not good for a baby's health if parents are too overprotective and, they're not letting the baby grow. You would know better. You're a parent. I have no idea about it. I'm just giving an example. Yeah, they go to school, they go out in the world, nurture and nature, everything.
Here, so from what I've noticed, so the reason why people start a business is they see they see something they want to change, and they want, and that's, I think, where the sense of control comes in. It's like I see a vision where, I want to change, either I want to change how I approach the market. I want to change something in a business sector, but they very much have a vision they want to control and get to, right? So that's where that control mindset is, and then quickly realize that you can't scale because you can't keep your hands around everything, right? So
Right. And also the belief that my solution is the best solution out there, because I believe the since I come from a technology background, uh, so my professor back at college used to tell me that Ali, an engineering mindset, an engineering mind, is a beautiful gift from God. Stop using it. And the reason he said that to me is because there is an ego that I was also guilty of having. When you come as an engineer, as a solutions guy, as a tech guy, or girl, or anyone, you think that you know what's the best out there. You don't see the market, you just know, oh, I made this phone, I know this would work, everyone would love it. Put it the other way around to see, does the market love it? Do people like it or not? Right? So we just go, we take the product out. And even like, I was talking to this person, this is, I don't know, 7, 8 years back, one of the teams that I was working with for a startup. And I was telling this idea to him, you need to do market research and this is how it works. And he is a materials engineer. And he tells me like, Ali, look, this phone, people didn't ask for this phone. The iPhone is out there. Uh, how do you explain that? Well, the companies, the researchers, they are doing the market research. They're doing their all types of research to find out what users want or what they do not want. So, but they are like big companies, like been doing this research for decades now. So they have a pretty good idea. But as a startup founder, you don't have that much resources to have that ego or that have that uh, understanding about your product uh, along with the market as well. So you might know the product very well, but you might not know the market. It's very rare when you can. And although I'm not a big fan of Steve Jobs for various reasons, but I have to give it that to him. He could see the link, you know, like if Wozniak, the tech person, could he could build the best computer, but if the users can't use it, if the users cannot understand, there's no point, right? So I think there's a founder's ego there involved too.
From the one of the two. So when you go to scale up, or even when you're in startup, there's finite things that you could do from a resource perspective, especially with a startup like you. That tends to be why you kind of go this unilateral direction. You only have so much resources. You need to
Right,
get there. You need to get there quick.
right.
How do you determine which process to start on first? Like, how do you evaluate
So
that?
I don't work with startups much. I work with scale-ups. I work with medium-sized companies. I don't work with the whole idea is to the whole innovation in my process here is working with teams. So it's team innovation, right? So I don't work with startups. I believe that that little chaos that they have is required for innovation. Is better, the best let themselves be themselves, figuring things out. Scale ups when things are more mature, when they know what's happening. So what happens is this. Uh, I I just listen to them. The first thing I when I talk to them to the scale ups, and I sometimes I even know what I could even predict. Now that I've worked with uh, so many scale ups, and even during my engineering days when I was an engineer, I had an interest in scale ups back then too. So it's been around 12 years that I have been like working with them formally and informally. So I have now that have this sense of what they're gonna say, but I I try to just listen to them, and I and we have this exercise that I do with my new clients or prospective clients is a pain point inventory. So pain point inventory. What we do is we sit down and we see uh, what's going wrong with the startup or with the scale up or with your company. It doesn't have to be a tech company, by the way. It could even be like a bakery, any business, right? Doesn't matter. The processes are like I would say agnostic. Everything has processes. Every business has processes. So we sit down, we do what we call a pain point inventory, and we figured out the bottlenecks, the issues, the uh, errors, whatever the word you want to use, the chaos, the where are they feeling stuck. We figured out those processes, and we then I show them how would things look like when you smooth things out, right? So I give them like a roadmap of things, and that is when they decide to work with me. So it's basically that pain point inventory workshop is me giving my interview, trying to sell my product, but more like they are coming to me, and we have this thing called Fractal. By the way, my company is called Fractal because inspiration from the processes, like infinite processes. So I have something called fractal flow. So at the end of the sessions, usually what you have is fractal flow, and everything is how smooth it should be. So I show them that picture. If you work on these processes, if you fix them, this is how they should look like, and that's the hook uh, for me.
I like that. So when you, there's a couple of things I want to ask you, and one of them, I'll start with this. Can you just so, because what you're talking about, your engineering background and stuff like that, it feels lofty, right? Like, and to bring it down into an actual like, hey, what does this look like? I like that last example you give. Can you give me an example of when you like a particular company that you worked with that you're really excited about in terms of like how you started, how you moved through that process is like just make it concrete for us.
Okay. So look at the engineering background because I do not use or I tend to avoid using technology with Fractal. So there is no software involved at all.
Okay.
I do recommend if they want to, if they really want to. But generally speaking, they don't need it. Mostly what they need is a sketchbook or like a paper and pen. And what we do is we sketch things out, process really like how things uh, go within the company. So
Like swim lanes? Like,
I was going to say the same word, swim
yeah,
lane
yeah. Okay.
diagrams and the
Yeah.
sidewalk and all these. So it's one company that is a non-profit organization based in the US that I'm currently working with right now. And well, on paper, they really look really good. Everything is nice, but inside the teams are like fighting with each other, like, they would like gonna take their lives or something like that. So very bad, very violent. And I was brought in by a referral, and things just like as simple as, so let's suppose getting funding for uh, I'm trying to think without giving their name away. Okay, for an asset, let's suppose, right? So
Yeah.
they want to buy a laptop from the other IT department, right? So it has to have a process. Usually, what they would do they would just say, "Hi, this is a new hire, and can you provide a laptop?" And that person would either forget, would have budget constraints, things like that, and they would not communicate to them. This is a very simple example I'm giving. So that the reason I'm giving a simple example is because I want to show that there is no technology involved at this point in this example. So we made a process, very simple process. Okay, you reach out to this IT department via email. They would reply to you via this channel, and this is the timeline. So when the process was shared between the IT department and that person making a requisition with the project manager, now they were both on the same page. The process was established. This is how. So there was no ambiguity. There was no like, oh yeah, he or she told me, and I'll take care of it. So simple things like these, it was leading to like chaos in the company because person A said, "Oh, I've ordered my laptop for my new team member, like 2 weeks ago, and they haven't replied." And they're like, "Oh, we forgot about it." So they were good on the big things, but on the small things, they were not doing well. So it can be anything. It could be like streamlining like small operations. It could be like working on big operations. Now, this is one example. I have another client, which is it's a big client actually, in the sense that it's all over Ontario. They have their offices and the shops and everything. And they also had issues with their processes, but these were there was so many people involved that I could not go and sit down there and meet with everyone, all the department heads all the time. So I could do like a few meetings, but it was practically impossible for me to do it, or even with my team to do it, the whole audit of the company. And this is an interesting example because they are the pioneers in what I call, uh, you know, AI process consulting. I don't have a good name for it right now. So using AI, but not the AI that you see like Chat GPT or like a chat thing, is basically, I don't know, Richard, do you know, remember back in the day when we have Microsoft Word, we had this, what was it called? The
The
help
paperclip
me,
guy?
sorry,
The paperclip guy?
the paperclip guy, remember that?
I don't
So
remember his name, but
yeah,
Clippy.
I
I
think
think
it was
his name was
like
Clippy. Clippy
Clippy,
accent.
Clippy, right? Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So that's where the idea came in. Clippy was the inspiration for me. The idea was this for big organizations. So for a small non-profit organization, just helping them out with a small process. Okay, you talk to this, you talk to that, and this is your SOP. good to go, nothing fancy. But for this big organization, and so I have the book in front of me.
I'm just gonna stop because it's a simple example you gave, just getting a computer, but it's so fundamental for a nonprofit to establish when somebody funds you, where does that money go? And the amount of money they spend on operations dictates how effective and efficient they are using that money, and incentivize people to send them money. So having a really tight process and determining what computer they should use. They need the person needs to be effective in order to do good things with the funding, but then not so they can't have so good a computer that it takes away from the funding. So even though it's a really small example, it's a good thing. That's like, if you can, in a nonprofit, if you can slim out the processes and put everything towards efficiency and show return on whatever they're investing,
Right.
it helps them. It's even more important than even
Right.
a
So
for-profit organization. So I like
I
that example.
I assumed that the communication flow there would be very nice because I was assuming it's a well-known nonprofit. It's out there. They must know what they're doing. I don't know what I'm gonna help them with. When I went there, like, oh boy. And this communication, so we have this sessions. It's basically a 10-week consulting session that I do, and every week has something. So one of these sessions is called audit, communication audit, and handoffs. Uh, and this was part of this session, and I made communication protocols for the entire company, right? After this session, a week after, I get a call from the CEO thanking me, that you have, this was such a basic thing that we ignored. And now that we have a communication method, we have a mode of communication, and everything is so smooth and nice, we can actually work on our main things. It and they were like, it usually needs another person with a third eye looking at you and solving the basic issue that was just right there in front of them. So it's basically me telling them what they already know, but giving them a process, a structure afterwards. Okay, now this is the structure that I've used. It works. Use this. That's it.
Yeah.
Other
And there's
process.
rationale there too. Like they're not paying attention to these small things because they're on the big picture. You mentioned they're doing so well on the big things,
Mhm.
but that's because all their attention is on the big things. And these little things that are slipping could be causing employee retention issues, employee happiness issues. And those things can brood and cause all kinds of troubles. But if you can fine tune it, like just give people like you said SOP, statement of processes, right?
Yeah.
Statement of procedures,
Yeah.
right? If you just give somebody some immediate direction, it frees them, right? It's a really weird example. Like, so when I did art school, that's my first thing. I was going to make millions as an artist, right? Like really brilliant, teenagers that have no idea.
There is millions in art, but yeah.
Yeah, but for one in the few, right? So we would have a painting class, and the instructor would come by and see you're stuck. You have a big blank page. You got so many different directions to go. How do you start? And he would just take a bit of paint and just throw it on your canvas, and then boom, I just freed you. Go, kind of thing, right? So it's
Right.
just these little, fine. If you
A
give
good
people
example,
direction,
good
yeah,
analogy.
you now free them because they know exactly how it's going to go. They know how the handoff's going to go. They know
Right.
when I ask you for something, you know what's going to happen on the other end, and they can free themselves to go and do those other activities. So it's those little minute things that add up to big victories in
Right.
the end.
And to add to what you just said, what you just beautifully described, uh, I never, so my intention is, and it should not ever be to say anything about the main business model, even if I'm tempted, right? Because the idea is just to fix the processes, find the bottlenecks, you know, uh, uh, just find out those quirks in the system. And these are usually overlooked in all of my experience last 4 years. Uh, Even some great companies, either they totally ignore it or they over manufacture these things. They pay too much attention on that and they don't focus on the main work. So it does need to have a balance. And I mentioned about the bigger company that I work with, since they have a lot of data, uh, it was easier for us to make a model that was not like ChatGPT AI, but a local AI that sits on your server, like Clippy. So every laptop in the system has, in the network has Clippy in it, and it just guides you right there. You don't ask a question like we used to ask Clippy, but Clippy would tell you, okay, for example, when you know all this documentation that HR has, and employees don't really know, oh, how many holidays do I left, or what's the policy for this? Can I do that? Can I do not do that? Clippy that we made would answer that. So would answer the SOPs, would tell you what to do, how to do it. It would give you a literal worksheet that you can, or a form. Oh, here's a form that you can fill out to give it to the IT or to the HR, right? And it comes in your email. So, so it's not a very advanced uh, AI by today's standards, but it gets the work done. It sits there, and it also does not uh, oversee every employee's data for privacy. We made sure that it's not like the CEO can see through Clippy, right? What's going on? So it was a little complex. We hired some AI experts, uh, but now, yes, it's implemented.
I like it because, when you look at the grander picture, a lot of the HR departments are being squeezed out of like it's hard to, it comes down to investing as much in HR. And then there's like a big gap in terms of when you have employee challenges, like, what do I do? How do I do this? I like that's always been mentioned with the AI. It's like it's almost like I think I mentioned it in the BDC reports, like having giving every employee an intern, right? So so this Clippy just basically has the process of keeping this person working, keeping them
Right.
focused. I need this. My computer's having problems. Okay, let's address that to keep you, like, they want to keep you working and focused because that's where the maximum return is. But all these little challenges happen, and if you smooth them out, they keep the person working, the productivity level goes up, basically, right? Which is a huge challenge in Canada too. I like that. What I was going to ask you from and this is a tricky one. I'll let you kind of answer this on your own. But from a funding business model perspective, how does somebody hire you? It, sorry, let me back it. In my mind, I'm sort of seeing there's an advantage of what you're doing. There's a return on investment, right? So you can probably demonstrate savings and cost savings to kind of justify your time. Do you do any of that when you're building? Like, when somebody hires you, they're hiring you by the hour, are they hiring you by the project, are they hiring you by an outcome that they're hoping to achieve? How does that look?
All of the above. Uh, Process consulting is not a new thing, but for mid-sized companies, medium-sized companies, it's still new. At least in Toronto, it is new. So I'll give you an example. I met someone through a friend. Uh, he asked what I do. I said process consulting. He got the idea. He asked me, let's go for coffee. And when he asked me for coffee, he didn't mention it. I thought it's going to be like a friend meetup, or maybe because we both wanted to. I wanted to try golf, and he had a friend who had this golf simulator, company, and he was telling me more and more about golf. So I thought it's going to be about a golf discussion. How can I learn golf better? And then it was not. He said we had coffee, and then he said, "Okay, here's a deal, Ali. We have I have a company with 60 plus employees, and we are a mess, and I need your help. What can you do?" Right, simple like that. Because people who are in pain, the leaders. So my challenge is to find those leaders in the company, the decision makers. They know exactly what I'm talking about when I mention I help with business processes, because I not only help with business processes, I also help with uh, decision making as well. So we have decision processes too. So some executives, and I learned this at Mac, by the way, and that's where my research started on decision sciences, is even for our startup, when we have to make a decision, we won't just say, oh, what do you think, what do you think, and what do you think? And we would say, okay, let's do that, or a vote. We'll go through different decision matrices, right? And we will follow up a program to find a chart, or it depends on what matrix do you use. But it has to be a structured process to find an answer to the problem. So, for example, uh, my first problem was as a startup. Well, I don't do startup work with startups anymore, but it's still a good example. Should we bootstrap the startup or should we have investors coming in? That's the question. Now, there's no answer to that question that is, I would say, objective, right? So with the founders, we had these workshops over a few days about we have weights for every option, and all this. So it's all mathematical, and it turns out that the company should bootstrap it rather than. And initially, the thinking was to, and that was the right decision, by the way, by that startup, and it turned out in their favor in the future. But they were going to go with the other option. But when they went through the decision matrix and had these conversations and give those weights and numbers to all their decisions, it turned out no, we have to. That's what the math says. That's what science says. And you know, even in for the fractal this year for my organization, so we always work closely with the research that's in the field. So, for example, I don't know if you have read about the Tuckman model of team formation, like when the teams go from storming to norming to
Yeah.
forming, all right?
Yeah.
So we introduce this concept based on research, right? And there's a concept. Interestingly, I found out after 2 to 3 years into my company, into Fractal, that there is a research paper that talks about almost the exact same thing that we are talking about, like processes, but we were inspired by biology. So they call it fractal web. So I reached out to the research author, and she works in complexities, sciences, and all. So the idea is like it's is inspired. These models that we develop are inspired by biology, and they have been implemented in various successful companies. So, like, I have this fractal loops that are inspired by uh, Spotify did that years back when they were like they were to reach a point that they know they're not growing anymore, and the founder brought an idea which is very similar to what we have. So the whole point is that what I introduce is inspired by biology, but it's based on mathematics. So we have mathematical models, just like a decision frameworks that we have. That and we give like I even use Markov chains for not for small businesses, for like bigger companies, where there's lots of complexity. The reason I don't use the word AI because it's basically mathematical models, right, that we are using, not ChatGPT. I try to avoid the word AI. Even my LinkedIn would say building human-centered systems because that's what I do. I do use mathematical models if required to help me with the complexity, like Markov chains, from even some graph theory, and we hire some mathematicians to work with us. This is pretty new. This is only this year we started doing that, and it's bringing up results. So I think so. People will come to me, number one, and then when they hear about the mathematics that we are using, the models that we are using, and these models are used in the world of finance all the time, but not in the world of team organizations, right? They are very curious to know what's going on, and they come to us.
I like it. I like the idea of saying biology, because the body is a bunch of cells that work together and working separately, individually, in unison, but they all have a way of kind of doing the way they do it, and it works with the other cells, right? So,
And, and
can you just? Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go
I'm
ahead.
just saying, and even like the body is one example, but like think about flock of birds, right? So they're moving in one. They have a leader, and the team is moving in one direction, and then they know where they are going. So the idea is from biology, the inspiration was self-organizing systems. That's the word. And the birds, the flock that are going flying together, they know where they're going. Every bird knows. They still have a leader that's leading them. But all of them can, if something happens, they can still reorganize themselves because that's a part of a self-organizing system. Sorry, you were saying something.
No, I love that. I love it. And then you think every individual bird has all the processes that it has as a unique individual bird. Then as you group them together, now it's a group working on all these other different processes. It's a
Right.
good analogy. I like that. And I like that idea, the self-correcting aspect of it. Like the leader kind of gives, we all know where we're going, but there's probably a million different ways to get there.
Right.
And just to ensure the whole group gets there the same way, the leader is the path that we follow and the one that we self-correct to. I think that's pretty. I was going to ask you about their name. You kind of said it really quickly, but I think there's a little bit more deeperness in the. Can you just explain your name, the fractal, like understanding? I don't know zip about math or anything like that.
Right.
So break it down a little
Yeah.
bit more because it was an interesting thing. We just kind of glossed over it. So
So if you Google fractal, that's a good start. So go ahead, Google it, and go to images when you Google it. Just Google it. That's the best way for. And you would see, if you go to like images on Google, right, you will see all that patterns. Do you see the patterns? I can't hear you, Richard. I think you're on mute or something changed.
yeah, I did I hit my keyboard. All of a sudden, I've got
Okay.
dictation going on. It's kind of so I'm seeing every word I'm typing. Very distracting. Here, let me share a screen to show you what I got here. Let's do images, right? So this is the one I was thinking of, like the natural one, right? The spiral and stuff like that. Fractal,
Right.
snowflakes and stuff like that. Oh, you can see it, right?
So fractals are all in nature. The spirals, right? You see galaxies and all. So as a kid, I was very interested in science and physics, and fractals would fascinate me. And since they repeat themselves and they can repeat themselves infinitely, so they don't. So it's like a self-repeating pattern, and then the idea stuck with me, and even the mathematics, because back in college I would use MATLAB, the software, to create fractals and see how they evolve, right? So they look so natural, but it's just mathematics, right? And they have a self-repeating system. So when we were working on this idea, and we did a lot of research, like both qualitative, quantitative, mathematical, biological. We have research papers that we use even to the every day, actually, by our team. So I have a team that works with me, not part of the core team, but a research team that helps us with the research. And Fractal is the idea of Fractal is there because it's just using mathematics for and creating systems and patterns that evolve and they go on and go on, and they and they're even like, if you see the DNA, that's also like, fractal repeating. So I was fascinated with the idea, with the concept. And I think that's how teams should be. They should be like self-organizing. They should not be like Spotify. That's one of the reasons for Spotify's success and growth was because uh, their teams are self-organizing too. Every team in Spotify, based on the research that I read, I'm not sure what's happening right now, but a few years back, would know where they're headed. Even at Apple, the team, so usually the team, iPad team would not communicate much with the iPhone team, for example, or the MacBook team, because they want to keep it like, so certain features like secret from the other team. They had this culture, but they would know the design is common, so they would understand. The SOPs are common, right? So they have their own fractals. They don't use the word, but they have their own fractals. So when I did some research about different companies, I figured this out, that the companies that are doing really well, their team members know what to do. They know where they're headed. They have a leader, but if you remove the leader out, and
It still work.
they will still work for quite some time, unless they
That's
at one point
interesting.
they will need the leader back, but they know what they're doing. And I think the initial innovation of Steve Jobs, for example, this still is in the company's DNA. They're still following that SOP. Like, okay, we're going to design an iPhone. It has to be simple, right? The basic design is still there. So, and all these companies that I research, they have this in common. So, yeah.
I know, I understand what you're doing a lot better now. Like I had to take part of one of the courses I had to take is process engineering. I kind of really enjoyed that. There's a little bit of what you're talking about, that like queuing and things like that.
Right.
What's the effective way to queue something, get something from here to there to be. But for me, it sounds like you could go into an organization and just tweak individual team processes. And if you work on enough teams, it will iteratively add up to compounding improvements in terms of time efficiencies and effectiveness.
Right. And I just had another example in my mind. So moon landing back in the 60s, right? Was all these people working day and night. They had these processes they were working on. So they knew what they're going to do. Everybody, was synced. There was a sync going on. And with that sync, they were able to do the successful moon landing back in, I don't know, 60 years back. It was possible because everyone knew what they're going to do. They all sync together. And the whole idea is to have the whole organization in a flow, in a good flow. When the flow comes in, and I've seen that coming in, and sometimes not after the first sessions, maybe after a year, when they actually adapt everything that we suggest. I've seen them going in a flow, and then the company growing, and it makes me very happy when I see that.
With Fractal, and I use the word editor if you didn't use it, but just I kind of sense, so you start off with a pain point diagram. As you fix pains, those pains disappear in other service. Is that something that you would do in an iterative process? So we start off where we're going to start. Like, let's do a pain map. Let's do a pain audit. Pick out the pains that are most prominent.
Let me open it right now.
Yeah.
Because I have
perfect. Yeah.
I will give you.
The question while you're doing that, I was going to ask is like, is that something that you would, okay, now we've accomplished that pain. Let's go through that pain model again and figure out what's the next tick.
Depends on, you go to a chiropractor, they do an analysis of you, depends on what hurts most. So that's it basically. Let me just go really quick. Okay. Documents and okay. Okay. So start with the operational pain points. Then we do, and we map the organizational structure. Then we assess team stage and collaboration. Then we do audit communication flows and handoff. And then we go for redesigning workflows and optimizing processes. We do a work breakdown structure, just like in the project management training. You break down into small parts exactly, and then we have a roadmap for implementation. We define KPIs, OKRs. So these are all like 1 week.
I'm just going to break out OKRs, objectives and key results.
Right. So then we have the next week. So this is like 1 week after another. Then we go for governance and decision matrices. Then we do a risk assessment and root cause analysis. And then we do some what we call node evolution and plan scaling. And then we have a simulation where they try to implement this alongside on the team and see how things change. And then after a few months, depending on the organization size and all, we come back and we do the audit again. So it's a process even to adapt and adopt. So these changes, it takes time. It takes usually 6 months to a year on average. This consulting program is 10 to 12 weeks long. So after that, we wait around 4 to 6 months. We check back again how things are going. And usually, on average, there is a 20 to 30% improvement in terms of team efficiency. And I also pitch these ideas to some VC firms, and this is something that we are still doing. But since VCs invest in scale-ups, right? a lot of money in scale-ups. They also want to invest in something that is more efficient than not being efficient. So, uh, like scale-ups, rather than going to these scale-ups themselves or the medium companies themselves, we can go to the investors and say, "How about you invest in us, and we help them out because you are going to save money."
I was going
So
to ask you that if that could be one of the models, because it could be the company itself funding you, but it could be the funders ensuring
that's
that.
one of the models. We have done this for one company right now. But yeah, it works because that other company doesn't have to pay anything from their pocket at all. Investors pay. And in one case, sorry, two cases, and in one case, the government paid. So,
Oh, excellent. What was the one in the government? Is that a grant program or?
oh, so that was for the, as I mentioned in the last call too, I think,
Oh,
last
the
meeting.
indigenous one?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for them. So
Okay.
there's one of the organizations that want to scale up, but they don't want to spend money. So we went to the, for their grant. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. I like that. I'm going to wrap it up now, but I always like to give you, is there anything else that, and we can probably have long talks and dig into other things. Like you have some other companies that I wanted to dig into a little bit, but I think on the next time we talk, I want to dig into. But one last thought: is there anything that I missed that you'd want to add to the conversation so people know you better?
Oh, Richard, you have been wonderful. You're a great host, and I love uh, how you went with the flow and how the stories emerged, and so to do your podcast.
Oh, perfect. Excellent. Thanks. Excellent. I enjoy having you in the group, Ali. I think you bring another dimension, and I think until I dug into this a little bit better more, I didn't realize what that was. So I'm glad we do these get to know you minis, and I appreciate you
Thank
volunteering
you.
your time. I know it's not easy answering a bunch of different questions, but hopefully it went okay.
Thank you for doing it. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm gonna end the call, but also end so you can go back to your work
Right,
as
right,
well.
right.
I'll record this and I'll put it back up on the B2B cohort so everybody can
Thank
see,
you.
get to know you a little bit better.
Thank
Appreciate your
you.
time, Ali.
Take care.
See ya. Bye now.
Bye.